So our first story comes from GameSpot. And it's basically us. We can probably just chat a little bit about it. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at a little list, but maybe we can go over a couple of the bigger categories. And that is that the Game Awards 2024 nominees have been announced. And I don't know if you've been online lately, but there has been a huge kerfuffle about the titles that have been nominated specifically for Game of the Year. Basically,
do you think the kerfuffle is bigger this year than it normally is?
I think so, only because of the kind of content that's been allowed to be nominated. I don't think we've had to have this discussion before because it's always been qualified as a certain kind of content versus a full game.
Right.
But we'll get to that in just a second because I'm sure this article is going to have its own opinion about it. Let's see here. So it says the Game Awards, an annual celebration of video games, takes place this December, and the nominees have now been announced for the 2024 showcase. In 2023, Baldur's Gate 3 took home the highly coveted Game of the Year award. This year, the nominees for Game of the Year include Astrobot. Let's go, Game of the Year. Balatro, Black Myth Wukong, don't know what that's doing there. And Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Metaphor ReFantazio, which I hear is phenomenal.
It's perfect.
The much spoken about contender, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree.
Woo!
Now,
baby, the obvious
the front
winner
runner
of the obvious front runner, Shadow of the Erdtree. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Elden Ring twice?
I mean,
once and then DLC.
I mean, here's my thing. I will never say that Elden Ring or Elden Ring content is not Game of the Year level. Okay? It is Game of the Year level content. Whether it's the main game, the expansions, what have you. However, to me, Shadow of the Erdtree is not a game. It is an expansion. It's an expansion of Elden Ring, which is the game. I don't think you can put out Erdtree on its own and call it a game because the backbone of it is Elden Ring.
I would make the same argument for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, though.
Really?
I'm in terms of like, it can't exist without that first one. So in terms of them both being sequels, Shadow of the Erdtree is as long as Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It's a huge game. It's basically a sequel to Elden Ring. It's like a slightly trimmed down sequel, but I do understand the controversy here.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like the idea, it is DLC, and I think people have to come to terms with, and/or the Game of the Awards needs to explain what it considers for Game of the Year. If DLC counts, then that means all DLC
should count.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So and that probably should have been something stated on some website beforehand, so that this controversy didn't happen necessarily. But or they should have just not nominated it. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like. Do you think they could have? Do you think FromSoft could have gotten away calling this Elden Ring 2? Because I think that would have just skated over all of this, and they would have been nominated it no problem. Like, is it big enough to be a 2, or is it more like a?
It's more. I mean, look, it's more like it. You have to consider how big Elden Ring is, right? Like,
I know.
So Elden Ring 2, you would think, well, that would need to be bigger and better than Elden Ring 1, and Shadow of the Erdtree is smaller. You know, so it's more like a 1.5.
Okay.
You know, but the thing is like, it took me 45 to 50 hours to get through Shadow of the Erdtree. Like it's a massive game. So I don't think they could have gotten away with calling it a sequel. It does work well as DLC. I wonder if they're even surprised they were nominated
I feel like they
for
are.
this.
They're like, dude, what? What are you? What?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're not even working on this anymore. What are you talking about?
Yeah. I think this is also a pretty interesting reflection of how this year has been in games, which I would say it's been not that great of a year. If you're nominating DLC, that's a sign that this year, if you're nominating Balatro, no offense to Balatro, right? Like
you might want to be. I was gonna say you might want to be careful because there are some legitimate Balatro addicts out there, from what I understand.
I haven't started it yet, but I assume I'm gonna get completely underwater.
I don't
want to
do it. I don't want to do it.
Everyone who's played it says it's amazing. I totally agree. Indie games don't usually show up in this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like that's another thing that's kind of odd about this. Also, like you said, Black Myth Wukong is on this list.
Yeah,
which is that game. Have you played that game?
No, but I can tell by looking. No, I can tell. You know how sometimes you have that eye. You know what I mean? Like you and I, we've been playing games long enough. We've been in this thing long enough that you can look at a game and be like, that's a 7. That's a 6 or 7. You know what I mean? You can smell it on it.
Yeah, I mean, I have played it, and I would say, it's like a 7.
See?
It's about a 7. It's about a 7, 8. You know,
it's a good looking 7.
It's really good. It's really good. It's really good looking too. But it's like, man, like compared to last year, and I mean, like, we all know this thing ebbs and flows in cycles, but you know, this doesn't. Black Myth Wukong doesn't touch a game like Armored Core 6.
No, not even
close. Just like a random title from last year that wasn't even the best.
Right.
You know, so it's just hard because, but man, I don't know how strong of a chance it has, and I'm not. But Metaphor ReFantazio should win this.
I feel like you're the first one to say. Well, the first one I know to say that.
Yeah,
but I feel like that's not that crazy.
I'm a huge fan, but like I've played every game on this list except for Balatro. And I think Metaphor ReFantazio is the game of the year.
And you know what? Honestly, if it won, I wouldn't be mad. Even
if it doesn't win, it'll be remembered longer than
just for
games,
being nominated. I'm still in Camp Astrobot right now.
Oh yeah,
that game
I wouldn't hate that.
That game is one of 2 games ever that have made me cry from happiness, and it was that. It was that, and it was Mario Odyssey. Those are the only 2 that I'm like,
oh wow,
yeah, tears of joy from those games. Like, just, man, art is awesome, and games are awesome, and being alive is awesome, and that's what those games made me feel. You know what I mean? And it's
100%.
Yeah. But Metaphor, I would 100% be fine if it took it home. I know it's a slim chance because not a lot of people play those, but it is literally the Persona team making this game, so you already know it's going to be top-notch content. Rebirth is the one that I feel like is the wild card.
Oh, in what way?
Well, I feel like the internet's done that weird like turn a corner thing on it. You know what I mean? Like,
okay,
how the first one was like, everybody was like, oh my God, it's so good. It's so good. And then after that, with the second one, everybody's like, oh, it's just this, it's the first one again, but it's bigger. You know how like they like to turn on this just because internet likes to hate things. But I've heard Rebirth is amazing. So I couldn't tell you one way or the other. I haven't had a chance to play. I loved Remake.
I that might be true about Rebirth. I have to be honest, I don't know what people think of that game. I mean, I don't think I've seen a lot of like people talking about it, but to me it makes sense because it's like it being on this list, just because it's like what else would you put on here?
Yeah,
like, literally like that. It was maybe one of the bigger things I think that came out that seemed to be at least got huge critical praise.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I really liked Rebirth. That was my game of the year until I played Metaphor, and then that just took it because I can't, it's just the best.
I 100% believe you. I want to play that game so bad.
It's so good. You would love it, dude. You would love it.
I'm holding out.
Yeah.
Switch 2, I know it's coming. I know it's coming to Switch 2. I know it is.
Do you think Astrobot has a legit chance?
I want to say yes, because of the critical acclaim and because it is the outlets that are voting on it. So I think that it would be why it has a legitimate chance. And because it was one of the highest rated games of this year. I think it was maybe the second behind. Was it behind Elden Ring? Or maybe Metaphor? It was in the high 90s for sure. Like, nobody had a bad thing to say about this game at all.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it would be such a strong front runner, and it was so different from most of the stuff that we got this year. A classic platformer that just was polished to a sheen, and it was just made by a team of veterans who really care about PlayStation and care about video games as a whole, and it's a nice love letter to that. So I can definitely see that. Great. Taking home the award. But quite honestly, I think it's probably going to be between Astrobot. If we're being real about it, Astrobot, Elden Ring, and Final Fantasy. One of those three is taking it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. It kind of, honestly, and look, I love Elden Ring, but when you put it like that, it's like, I definitely want to see Astro or Final Fantasy take it over Elden Ring. I mean, I just, and Astro would be cool to reward that team that made it, because it really was that team. I think.
Yeah.
I think
Team Asobi is they are monsters over there.
I don't think Sony was making them do that.
No,
I think they took it upon themselves. Yeah.
But yeah, we just wanted to touch it real quick on that. And there are a host of other categories that are being nominated, but we would literally be here all night if we went through each category. So I would invite you to visit the GameSpot article and read for yourself and see if there's anything in the list that you might have missed this year, and go check it out. Maybe you still have time to play it before the Game Awards happen, so you can have a better understanding.
Thank you so much for watching that clip from our podcast. Remember, if you want to watch the full episode, link will be in the description below. You can click on that and check it out. We got listener questions. We got more news segments. We got what you playing. We got a lot of fun things. So yeah, more than just the news. There's a lot more to the show that you should go check out. So remember, click that link in the description. Check out that full episode.